my lovers of learning. This is Chris, and this is my channel, Barn on 11970, and I want you guys to sit back, relax, listen to what I'm going to show you guys, and you could make up your own minds, because I'm not here to tell you how to think or what to think. I'm giving you information, and what you do with it is totally up to you. And as you could see by the title of this video, Hidden in Banks, Words, Water, and Death, I'm going to do a whole bunch of terminology that you probably use on a regular basis that makes you subconsciously talk about banks and money, admiralty law, which has to do with water, and also death. So these are things that are programmed to you with everyday language, and you just won't notice it. You won't pay attention, because when you say a lie long enough, it becomes the truth, and repetition makes something programmable. So I'm going to use a whole bunch of terminology. I'll use some definitions every now and then, but I'm going to make you think about words that you use all the time. And some of them are phonetics, where they can have a word sound the same, but it has different meanings. Like, for example, if I was to say to you, look at that sun. Well, am I talking about the sun in the sky, or am I talking about someone's male child? You don't know. You can only assume. So this is how they trick people, where they put information right in words that you'll use all the time, and you may not notice it until it's pointed out to you. So I'm going to show you dozens of examples. So sit back, relax, and listen to what I have to say, and take from it what you will. So let's start out with banking terminology, banking terms, and money, or currency. Now, have you ever been by yourself? Now, what's another name for being by yourself? Well, you're alone. Well, you as a person, I've always said in my videos that you are a debt note. When you are born, they create a fictional character in your name and you become dead. You become a legal definition of a person. Fictional character, where they borrow money off of you and your trust that you're not aware of. So think about that first. When you're by yourself, you're alone. Well, what do banks make? They make loans. So they're telling you right there, you're a loan. A loan, L-O-A-N, not A-L-O-N-E. So right there, right off the bat. Now, if you've ever signed into anything on a computer, well, you have to have a username, don't you? Well, what is usury? Well, according to legal definitions, usury is a legal practice of lending at high interest rates. So you're a user. What a surprise. It has to do with you and money, and basically other people make lots of it. Let's use some phrases that you use on a regular basis, or you've used before. And of course, you could use this in so many different ways. I just pick one just to have one. You ever hear the expression, we all need somebody to lean on? Yeah, lean on me if you're not strong. Well, what is a lien? Don't they do that on properties from banks that are thinking of foreclosing? They put a lien on your house. Now, think about this one. And again, this is phonetically. You're called a person. Okay? Now, think about it phonetically. Where is it that women keep their money? They keep it in a purse. Interesting. That one's maybe a little far-fetched, but sometimes they come to me and just we'll go with it and see what happens. You ever have the expression, I owe you, or you owe me your life, or whatever? Well, where else can you owe? You owe money, don't you? Because if you're not, you're probably held accountable. Well, where else can you have an account? How about a bank? And you better make sure you check yourself. Ever write a check? Or, you guys should give yourselves a little credit. Seeing the pattern? And I got a lot more to go, so sit back and just continue to listen. Because eventually we'll get by. And when you're alone, you're all by yourself. So you have buy and sell. I'll get by. And I'm all by myself. Ever merge into traffic? Well, what is a merger? It's bringing of two companies together. It's kind of like marriage. What rate will you get? Well, bank rate. There's another one that's kind of far-fetched, but again, phonetics. You ever call somebody me amor? Well, what's an amortization? It's the process of reducing debt. Amort How about another one? Time to charge in. Well, what else do you charge? How about, what if somebody is a juvenile delinquent? Well, what's a delinquent? Where can you be delinquent? How about in a bank payment? Let's continue. Let's talk about when you go to school, who's in charge of a school? Usually the principal. Well, where else can you find a principal in a bank? The principal loan. Look at the savings and just make sure you always check in. So you have your savings, you have your check, you have your accounts. Think of this one, because you are a debt note. Now, what's another name for a hired killer? Contract killer. Think about that. Killer of a contract. Quite interesting when you put it in that perspective, because you're literally hiring somebody to murder another human being, but yet they call it a contract killer, the killer of a contract. Well, if you're just a trust and a fictional character, you're just killing the contract, the name on the piece of paper. But then again, I'm just making a statement. Or else can you make statements? Ever have that's another thing here. You ever eat a balanced diet? Well, where else can you find a balance? Just deposit that anywhere. You know where deposits are. So there are plenty of places that talk about this stuff. Now, you ever been on a phone call and they say, well, let me put you on hold? Well, according to banking definition, the term hold means used to indicate a certain amount of customers' balances that may not be withdrawn. Or you ever see somebody when they've reached maturity? Well, what's the definition of a maturity? The definition is the date on which the principal balance of a loan or other financial instrument becomes due. Now, what's another thing that the banks lend out to people? Don't they give out loans for mortgages, a mortgage? Well, I've told people in the past, and if you haven't watched it before, you'll hear it here for the first time, but the actual old definition of mortgage is a death pledge, which is probably why when you die, they take you to a mortuary, place you in a morgue, and you are dealt with by a mortician. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But let's think of some terms that have to do with death and funerals. Have you ever been buried in debt? Well, where else can you be buried? Have you ever opened your eyes? Well, what does that tell? What do? You wake. Well, where else can you go to a wake? Well, usually when you open your eyes, what time of day usually does that tend to be? That's usually in the morning. Well, where else can you mourn? Because, if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to be dead tired. Now, have you ever heard of somebody trying to decrypt a code? Well, where else can you find a crypt? Or, here's a funny one. When you have a family, you tend to have what's called the family car, don't you? The Simpsons have one. Any place you watch on TV shows, they always drive in that family car. Even the good old Brady Bunch had a family car for all the family to ride in. Well, did you know in a funeral terms, the family car means the limo set aside for the immediate family? And here's another one you may or may not know. A family room. We all have family rooms, don't we? Well, that actually dates back to a time when funerals were done in people's homes. There was a room specifically made for funerals called the family room. So your family room in your house was originally created back in the days for where they placed deceased bodies. So the definition of family room is a specifically arranged room in a funeral home for a family privacy of time at funeral, because they don't do it in houses anymore. A couple other phrases. You ever say this one? I've made a grave mistake. Well, where else can you find a grave? Let's see. Ever drive along and you see all those road markers? Well, what's a marker? Well, the definition is a monument or memorial to mark place of a burial. Anyone out there ever have a niche? Well, that means a shell-like space in a wall made for placing of urns. I mean, you ever watch a movie and you figure out the plot? Well, where else can you find a plot? How about in a cemetery? Anyone ever tell you in a diet you should purge yourself? Well, purging is a discharge from the deceased through the mouth, nose, and ears of matter from the stomach and large intestines caused by improper embalming. Anyone ever tell you to remain seated? Well, where else can you find remains? You know, because when you are getting up in the morning, what do? You rise and shine. Well, spiritually speaking, only spirits can rise. I guess that's the spirit. Here's another one that connects to banks. Don't banks have vaults? Well, what is a vault? A vault is a burial chamber underground, or partly so. See the patterns? Let's get back a little bit into the money again with the banks. Little phrases where they get you to say these things all the time, and you've heard these statements before, and you've probably said them somewhere in your life, but it gets you to think about money. Do you ever have a penny for your thoughts? Or tell somebody, don't nickel and dime me? Or do you get paid next quarter? So right there, pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, all in conversation. I mean, think about it. Also, you know, as you could see, you're probably saying, oh, he's on a roll right now. Well, what's a roll? A roll is bread or dough. More money terms. Got to save that dough. Got to make some bread. It's probably why they're always saying things like, you know, it has to do with coining a phrase. And that's probably why this doesn't make any sense. But that's, like I said, that's probably why the government and politicians are always saying it's time for change. Because we're not making a lot of money, are we? So let's get into some admiralty law and some terms that have to do with water, because that's what admiralty law is all about. Ever been in a sea of debt? Drowning in debt? Ever have to liquidate your assets? Or your house is underwater? Are you barely floating? Barely floating on? Now think about when it comes to birthing. Now, when you think of the military of the sea, well, that's the Navy. Now, when a woman has a baby in their womb, well, it's attached to the belly button or the navel. So again, this is phonetics. Now, Navy has ships or vessels. Well, baby in the womb is attached to the navel, like I said, and it travels down the birth canal. Well, where else can you find a canal? Don't ships go through canals? And when it comes out of the womb, well, what is a womb? Well, that's the definition of womb is a place of origin and development. So it's not just birthing in a woman. Now, when a woman gives birth, it is delivered or shipped by a doctor. Well, where do boats go when they go to port? Don't they go to a dock? And it's done in a delivery room. Now think about that. You have to do with ships. Don't you ship a package? Or you can deliver it, and you're in a delivery room, shipping of a package. It's a product. These are things that they don't want you to know because they sound silly, they sound crazy, but look at all the different examples that I gave you all to think about. Now, of course, you could sit there and roll your eyes and say, Chris is crazy, he should be doing better things with his life. Or you could be sitting there and saying, wow, a lot of those things I've never thought about until it was placed in that perspective. I've made many videos talking about hidden in plain sight, so those things could be, they can absolutely be coincidences, or there's more to it. So that's for you to decide. The more you search these things and the more you pay attention, the more you'll see everyday words that have more meanings than you are led to believe or told about. So it gets you subliminally to have these things ingrained in your system so you just think they're just regular words. Because words affect you, whether you want to believe that or not. And one of the biggest lies ever told when you're a kid is sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, I'm going to show to you how that's so untrue. Because names, whatever it is, it's not the actual word that affects you, it's the vibration and energy that comes out from it. That's why if you've ever seen a movie that has to talk about wizards or witchcraft or Satanism or anything where they do chants or they're casting a spell, they're always using words. No, it doesn't matter what they say because it's actually the vibration of the word that causes the damage. I mean, not for nothing, if you have, and I don't recommend you ever do this to your child because it's a form of child abuse, but if you were to tell your child every day they were a piece of trash and they weren't worth anything, you're going to tell me those words won't affect that child? What about nails on a chalkboard? Just imagine somebody taking their nails and scraping it down a chalkboard. Think that won't affect you? I bet you some people cringe just thinking about it. Now think about somebody scratching their nails along that chalkboard, making that really loud scratching noise, and you see and hear their nails break. I bet some of you even shuddered. Now, have I physically touched you? Has anything physically touched you? Just the thought of it can make people cringe. But the sound actually will affect you. Why do you think when they want to get rid of some crowds, they will blast loud music? Because it all has to do with vibration. So it's not the actual words that they say, it's the vibration, because it's all energy. And you can disrupt an electrical pattern, but we don't notice those things because we're not taught about those things. So you're automatically going to dismiss it because it sounds crazy. Well, at least the ones that are still asleep will. The ones that have been coming here for years to basically say they don't like what I say. But the smart ones start to comprehend the deeper meanings behind words. That's why they have things called reverse speech. English was made to entrap people, to have certain words come out in certain vibrations, because vibrations of energy can affect you both positive and negative. That's why you've ever heard the expression that music soothes the savage beast. Well, it depends on the frequency, depends on the pitch, depends on the tone. Because think about if you want to relax and somebody plays heavy death metal music. You think you're going to relax with that music? Or do you think you might start getting angry? Or just imagine if you went to the gym and they're playing Beethoven over the loudspeakers. You think that's going to pump you up and energize you? Or do you think that might make you fall asleep? These are not coincidences. It's simple mathematics, because if you look at people like Beethoven and Bach and all of those composers, you will also know that they were very much mathematicians. They knew about the math of it, the numbers that are involved, the Fibonacci sequences, the patterns. It goes much deeper than what you're taught in a public school. Their job is to keep you dumb enough to never question anything or realize the truth of anything, but smart enough to run their machines so they could make lots of money off of your labor until you become too old to be worth anything. Then they cash in on your stock, because that's what you are. That's one of the reasons why when very wealthy people get married, they say they're good stock. And that's why if you want to be left alone, you tell people to mind your own business. Or that person's good company. It's all in the words. Take it the way you will. Appreciate it if you want. Share it if you want. Continue to search for these things. Or just automatically dismiss it. But make no mistake that dismissing something does not mean that it cannot affect you. Because just imagine, and I hope this never happens to anybody, that let's just imagine you're at a bar and you have whatever drink. Let's say you're drinking rum and coke or you're drinking a glass of water. And you decide to go up and use the little boy's room and the little girl's room. And you leave your drink there. And somebody places a drug in there. Now, you're not aware of this, and nobody tells you. So just because you're not aware of it, does that mean that drug will not affect you in some way? Or what if, for example, one of your friends that you fought with a week ago and you're not talking to each other, they're at the bar at another side of the bar and they see somebody put something in your drink, and you go, your friend that you're fighting with comes up to you and says, listen, I just want to let you know, it's like, I know we have problems and everything, but I just want to say, I think I saw somebody put something in your drink. And you're fighting with that person, you think they're an idiot or anything, and you dismiss it. It's like, don't start your shit, go away. And you don't believe them. So does that matter? If somebody did put something in the drink and just because you didn't believe what they said, that it won't affect you? People walk around blindly, just wondering what's going on in the world, and they think they're going to be completely fine in their sleep. Now I'm talking about the people that just don't want to know what's going on. They want to pretend that nothing's happening. Because let me tell you something. They teach you that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is not bliss, especially when you come to those terms. And people justify things. Like, for example, in your drinking water, I'm sure if you turn on your faucet and you put it on long enough, you'll smell bleach. Now, most people justify that by saying, oh, well, they only put a little bit of bleach. Let me ask you something. If I had a glass of water and I hand it to you, and I said, can I put some bleach in that drink? I'm sure most of you, if you're smart, would say no. Well, what if I said, oh, well, I'll only put a little bit? Will you turn around and say, oh, okay, you're only going to put a little bit of bleach? That's fine. See how they condition you to think that that's okay? It's just a little bit. It's just a little bit of poison. It's not there to kill you, but it is there to make you sick, because when you're sick, what do? You need to buy medicines from the very people who sell them. And that's why their medicines don't cure you, they treat you. They don't want you cured, because if you're cured, they can't make money off of you. But if they can treat you, they have a lifelong customer. So they don't want you healed. But if you think ignorance is bliss, let's put this statement out there and see if you would do this or not. Let's say it's the summertime wherever you are and you live by beachfront property. And you and a bunch of your family and friends and all your kids and all the kids in the neighborhood all decide we're going to have a party at the beach, and all the kids want to go swimming. And what you didn't read was the sign that said, because of a storm that happened the night before, it brought in a whole bunch of great white sharks, and they're all over that water. But you don't know it because you didn't pay attention to the signs, or you didn't notice them because you were having too much fun laughing with your friends. Do you think not knowing that those sharks are in the water means that you're 100% going to be safe and something bad cannot potentially happen? Now, if I was to go in the middle of that party and say, listen, get your kids out of the water, and I don't explain why, well, you're going to be like, who the hell are you? Don't ruin our time. Look at the kids. They're having fun. They don't want to leave the water. Well, what if I say then, well, I didn't want to alarm you or scare you, but there are sharks in that water. And you sit there and laugh at me. Say, oh, you're crazy. There's no sharks in this part of the ocean. And you dismiss it because you don't want me to ruin your good time. Well, do you think good things will happen out of that? Or do you think the smarter thing would have been like, you know what? Let's be safe. Let's get the kids out of the water. Because just because there's sharks there doesn't guarantee an attack, but it's a lot more likely than if they weren't there. And people like myself and others don't do these things to ruin your party because we just have nothing better to do. We're trying to wake you up and save you. And now a lot of people come here and appreciate that. A lot of them appreciate the things that I talk about. It makes them think. And if you think, you're using that muscle of a brain, because like any muscle in the body, if you don't use it, it starts to deteriorate. The muscle is no different in your brain than it is in your arm. And you definitely need your brain a lot more. Because you can live without an arm. You can't live without a brain. And sadly, so many people in this world walk around with a brain they don't really use. They use it for anger. Well, that's a lower vibration. That doesn't take a lot. That's the reptilian brain. So the people that will chastise me and others, the ones that hate you for it, they're not really they're not using their brain for thought. That's reptilian brain. That's instinct. That's caveman. So yeah, it's easy to get angry. It's easy to just shut off everything. Say, nope, I don't want to hear it, or you're a jerk, or, you don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't require any effort on that. That's minimal brain use. That's like breathing. You just do it. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to breathe. So if people want to stay in that lower brain mentality where they're using part of their reptilian instinctual brain just to have enough thought process to operate the machines that make several people wealthy, well then keep laughing at us. Keep making fun of us. Keep attacking and hating and wanting to hurt us. Because ultimately, in the end, you're hurting yourself. Because if you're helping to prohibit truth or helpful information or potentially enlightening information, then you suffer as well as everybody. You know the old expression, we all fall down? So I think this video is long enough. I hope if you've watched until this amount, you either walked out of the room and left it on, had to go do some laundry, or you liked what I had to say. And if you did, thumbs up, show the support. Sharing it's even better. Watch it and listen to it as many times as you want. Check out my other videos. Think. Listen to things. Pay attention to your surroundings. Or not. It's free choice. But I made mine. So thank you for taking the time to hear what I had to say. Whatever you take from it is totally up to you. And I hope I will see you again next time on the Barnum 11970 channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great night.